Greetings, Gilliam the Rogue here once again, back with a build video. Today we'll be examining my Magicka Nightblade for PvP. This build is primarily meant for no CP and battlegrounds, so we're going to be running a lot of regen focused things as well as a little bit more defenses instead of just full out burst. We will not be using crazy proc sets, however I will be talking about stuff that you can use in their place because really cool thing about Magicka Nightblade is that we can fulfill a lot of roles depending on what gear we wear. This build is not meant to be a 1vx build, it's not meant to be a bomb build, but we can do a lot of burst coming out of invisibility or stealth, which we can enter quite readily. This build is very single target focused. We have almost no AoE except for an ultimate and one flex spot that I will be talking about when we get to the ability loadout section. So, for race, I really like Argonian for PvP as pretty much anything. They have unparalleled resource management, especially in Morrowind where that stuff is really important. Their passive for their potion consumption actually got buffed instead of getting nerfed when they reworked their percent. Instead of working off a percent, it just works off of a flat bonus, and pretty much all of the benchmarks that they said if you're under this you'll get a buff, they were really high, so pretty much everyone got buffed. So Argonians are really strong. They also have 9% max health, which is amazing in Cyrodiil because more health means less chance of getting bursted, which means more time to survive. Time to kill is really important. You want as low as time to kill for your enemies and as high as time to kill for yourself. Killing enemies as soon as possible and making sure you don't die. So health is great. You're also going to get some max magicka to help your damage and healing as well as your damage shields. The other thing is that we're going to get tons of percent healing received and done, which will double dip for ourselves and have a little bit of utility for our allies. So Argonian's #1 in my opinion. If you're looking for a little bit more offensive or versatility between PvE and PvP, Dunmer comes in at a very close second, having tons of elemental damage, however rather redundant in this build, but still having really nice magicka as well as stamina, which helps block, dodge, etc. The other thing is they're going to have some fire resistance, so if you really like playing vampire for the extra regen, mist form, etc., then Dunmer makes vampires really beneficial to help load off all of that extra fire damage taken, because fire damage is very prevalent in Cyrodiil, especially with Eye of the Storm and Dragonites. So Dunmer comes in at a close second. You can get away with a lot of different races, so feel free to pick what you like. However, Argonian and Dunmer are definitely my two top suggestions. Going into Mundus Stones, we have two big options for Mundus Stones that I really stick to. If I'm going into no CP, so BGs or no CP, and I'm trying to do a lot of healing as well instead of having bursts, so if I'm in a really small group or solo, I really like Atronach. The regen that this thing gives is amazing, and moving into Horns of the Reach, it's going to be even better because it's getting buffed. So Atronach is really strong in the Morrowind patch and Horns of the Reach because of this regen buff that it'll be getting. Since we don't have a ton of percent modifiers, it's not crazy until Horns of the Reach, so I don't really run it all the time. However, if I'm solo trying to keep myself alive between spamming Healing Ward, going into Cloak, and being offensive, then Atronach fills that niche really well. Meanwhile, when I'm in groups where I have a dedicated healer who's allowed to throw me orbs or shards, or I'm able to just get away by not being focused as much, I can heavy attack and all that stuff, I really like Shadow, because Shadow is the only counter to Impenetrable, because it increases your critical hit damage, while Impenetrable reduces your critical hit damage. So Shadow is a direct counter to Impen, and Impen is a very powerful trait that many knowledge PvPers wear. So if you're fighting people who are very good and you're looking to get better, then Impen is a really harsh stat for you. But Shadow will counteract that and allow you to just push some of their Impen efficiency down, allowing your crits to do bonus damage. Furthermore, if someone is not wearing Impen, they are in for a prize. So, Shadow wins for burst. You can go with Thief if you want a little bit more consistency in damage. However, since Impen reduces the damage of crits, that means whenever you do crit, Thief will be much less beneficial. However, it will apply to your healing and damage. Shadow will apply to healing and damage as well, and since there is no Impen on healing, Shadow allows for some nasty bursts, especially with Healing Ward as well as Soul Tether. So those are really nice options. You can go with other stuff if you like, but those are definitely my two top picks, is Shadow and Atronach. Moving into consumables, we have a lot of diversity in terms of consumables. However, there's a lot of really powerful things that we should be looking out for. So, in terms of food, I really like Tri-Stat food because you want to have a healthy stamina pool in Cyrodiil regardless of what you are. If you're a healer, if you're a tank, if you're a stam, or Magicka DPS, stamina is vital to staying alive. It's going to help you block really harsh moves like Meteor or Dawnbreaker of Smiting and stuff like that, as well as dodge rolling really aggressive players or snare spammers. So dodge roll is really, really important. And then when you do get CC'd, CC removal eats a lot of your stamina, so having a hardy stamina pool will ensure that you can do all of these activities rather frequently. Now, if you don't find that you need that max stamina because maybe you're an Argonian, you're drinking potions off cooldown, and you just have a lot of stamina income and you're using the morph option that I'll suggest, you can use Bi-Stat food, or you can use gold food, the bear haunch, to get regen and everything. You can use Witch Mothers if you want health, mag, and mag regen. You have a lot of options. In terms of consumables for potions, there's a lot of different stuff. Immovability potions are amazing for moving into a fight so you don't get crowd controlled, so that you can keep lining up your burst in moments of need. And in order to do that, you don't want to be CC'd, so immovability potions are amazing. You can also use Essence of Spell Power. You can have Detection on them, which is what I highly suggest. Or since we do not have Mage Light with this build, unless you want to, you can put Prophecy on there to get Major Sorcery and Prophecy, because those are not built into our kit with the abilities that we will be using. So those are very, very helpful. Plus that Max Magicka and Major Intellect really helps our sustain. So those are my two potion options. You can use tripods as well. That will help even further, especially if you're Argonian. Pretty much if you drink a potion, you're going to go back to full resources and health. So really, really great, but that can be rather expensive. Myself, personally, I drink potions like crazy to utilize our Siphoner passive. I'll get to that in a bit. So I just drink garbage potions, stuff that you can find in dungeons on dead bodies, like really, really weak stuff. They're not as good as crafted, but they serve as an ultimate filler, as well as making sure our major intellect is up. You can also use stamina potions if you find yourself running out of stamina quickly. So I'll just carry hundreds and hundreds of these and go through them quite frequently because I love to utilize Siphoner passive. So that's pretty much it for consumables. You can use poisons with this build, however, I really detest them. I carry them around in case someone is spamming poisons on me and I find myself having a hard time killing them. I will counteract them by using poisons myself, but generally I don't like using poisons because I find them to be a little bit overbearing and really, really unfair. Okay, moving into gear. We'll start with what gear sets I use, and then we'll move into traits. So, gear sets. We're going to be using a monster set because they're just too efficient. Plus, we'll still be able to run 2 5-piece bonuses, however, they will not be able to be active at the same time. So I really like this setup for what this is, because one of them doesn't need to be active all the time. So I really like using a monster set. You can use Grothar if you find yourself wanting more AoE potential. Moving into Horns of the Reach, you can use Doma House if you want to play around that. However, I really don't like it, especially as a Nightblade, because you all about mobility, and then if you're sitting inside of it, enemies kind of have a rough idea of, oh hey, he's probably hiding out in that giant fire ring. Plus its damage is really, really lackluster. So I go with Valkynscoria personally. It has immense single target burst, which is what my playstyle is built around. So Valkynscoria does a lot of damage, but it's uncontrollable. It only procs off of dots, which we only have 1 or 2 in our kit, so it's not going to be going off crazy, but it'll still be proccing enough to make to validate or justify its use. So Valkynscoria, amazing. Tons of burst. Whenever you hear the audio cue, you should be trying to line up burst like Relentless Focus up along with it so that you can just do tons of damage in a very short amount of time. Moving on to our next 5-piece, which is our offensive one, which is only going to be active on our Destruction Staff bar, or our front bar. This is Spinners. Spinners is amazing. It is getting nerfed in Horns of the Reach a tiny little bit in terms of how much penetration. It's less than a 1% damage nerf, but it is being buffed on its Max Magicka pieces, which means we'll have more sustain because more resources to cast from, more damage, as well as larger damage shield. So I actually really like the change to Spinners because it's a buff for the gameplay that will be focused around, which is PvP. So Spinners is not going to be garbage next patch. It's very, very powerful, especially in PvP, because we're losing Sharpen, so we want that penetration. So, yeah, Spinner's really strong. Comes from Malabal Tor. We're going to be running 4 body pieces and then 1 Destro Staff, and we will be using a Flame Staff since, again, we are a single target build with this setup. If you want to go Bomb build, you can go Dual Wield, or you can go Lightning Staff. Either or, they're both really good for raw damage. But this is not a Bomb build, this is a single target burst build. So, moving on to our back bar, which is a Lich Resto Staff, and when we're on that bar, we will activate 5-piece Lich. Lich is really strong, however, it can be redundant in CP campaigns if you have a lot of resource management, coming from heavy attacks, regen, etc. So if you find yourself not needing a regen set, you can use many others, which I'll get to in a bit. But since this build is meant for BGs and no CP campaigns, I really like this set. Furthermore, the massive advantage of this set is that once you go on your back bar, if you are below 33% Magicka, you'll get that massive influx of recovery, which will be affected by percent amps like major recovery or major intellect, root buffs, passives, etc. And after you swap off, you'll actually retain that buff, so you don't have to always sit on this bar in order to make utilization out of the Magicka regen. Lich is really great for that because you can have the best of both worlds by having it active even after you swap off of the 5-piece. It has a really nice 2 through 4 piece as well because we're going to get tons of Magicka recovery as well as flat Magicka. So, really strong. Again, if you find yourself not needing this regen, you can go with other setups. If you're doing a lot of group play stuff in Cyrodiil and you want to be more of a bomb build, go with Vicious Death. It is immense in terms of damage production. However, keep in mind that you will only have this active on your back bar, so try and run something back there that's going to be your killer stuff. So you'd be running stuff like Soul Tether or Eye of the Storm, Sap Essence, etc., utilizing that big damage and then swapping to that. Or, if you want to, you could also do a lot of your damage on your front bar and then swap to your back bar as targets get low health and then proc Vicious Death. So that is an option. There are tons of other setups that you can use, like Amber Plasm, which will really help your stamina regeneration as well as your Magicka regen, even after the nerfs. You can also use a really nice set called Shadow Walker, which is whenever you are in stealth and you stand still, you get a shit ton of stamina and health back. So if you enter Cloak and don't move at all, you're actually going to get a really nice heal as well as tons of stamina. So if you find yourself favoring that 1vx sort of build, playing outnumbered, really pushing yourself to your limits to get better, then Shadow Walker is really powerful in helping your stamina management, because pretty much the only time we die with this build is when we let our stamina get low so we can't really keep up our defenses with Healing Wardens. So that is more really strong options, but again, it will only be active on your back bar, so you'd have to have Cloak back there. Okay, now for traits. So moving into the Horns of the Reach stuff, not too much is changing with armor. Stuff will change with weapons. So in terms of big pieces, I really like Infuse because I love Prismatic Enchants because they're really efficient. Again, health, Magicka, and stamina are all vital to PvP regardless of what playstyle you are, because you always need stam to block, dodge, CC break. You want Magicka to be either offensive with this build, heal, or use utility skills, and then you want health so that you don't die. So ideally, you'd actually be running all Prismatic Enchants, in my opinion, especially for no CP. If you're looking for more damage and you have group mates that can kind of take pressure away from you, then you can go full Magicka if you so wish. That will mean your shields are a little bit bigger, but you will have way less stamina and way less health, making you very susceptible to killed. If you're looking for a cost-efficient mix, then only go Infused on your big pieces, and then we'll be using Impen on our small. Now, I used this on my old Sork build, which was all about stacking max Magicka, so I had all Infused. Ideally, that would not be the case, because we are not a damage stacking, or a damage shield stacking build, so you'd want to have Impen or Well Fitted. Moving into the Horns of the Reach patch, you can also use Prosperous if you really like that regen and have a lot of percent amps. So you have tons of options. However, I really like Infused on big and then Impen on small. Now, I don't have that because I'm not going to go spend all the money because I do pretty well with what I have. And there's just so much money already being spent in Horns. Anyways, so I make do with what I have. But again, Infuse big, Impen small. Since both of our gear sets, Spinner, Lich, Vicious Death, all that stuff comes in arcane jewelry. Same with Amber Plasm. You don't have to worry about not having ideal traits. Everything pretty much only comes in purple jewelry. Vicious can come in gold, so if you want to have more damage, you can go with Vicious as well to have those extra Magicka points active on the arcane. Okay, as for weapon traits and enchants. Enchants, Oblivion damage, really, really strong. I mean, there's not much to talk about. It is one of those cheesier things, but everyone's using it. You can't really say, oh, I shouldn't be using this, because it's just overperforming at the moment. So this is another point where I'm like, all right, well, I have to use this because there's no reason not to. Like, I don't gain benefit out of a shock enchant or a burning enchant as well, because those things can be purged. Oblivion is going to ignore resistances, it's going to eat through all that stuff, and it can't be removed. So Oblivion is just really fucking strong. Again, you can use poisons if you want to be a cheese lord as well. However, I would prefer to do that on a resto staff bar, if at all. You can use Berserker Enchant if you want a little bit more damage and healing out of your skills, but Oblivion damage, you want to have as much burst as possible. So if you always are light attacking, every 4 seconds you're doing 2.2k worth of unresistible damage, roughly 1900 in no CP. So it does pretty considerable damage, especially when paired with a light attack and another burst ability like an ultimate or a spectral bow. As for our back bar, as for traits, Sharpen is still going to be really strong in PvP next patch, even after the nerf, because everyone's going to have a lot of mitigation, because one-piece bonuses such as spell resistance or physical resistance are going up, shield resistance is going up because of the CP passives, so yeah, having Sharpen is still going to be really, really beneficial. Now, if you want a lot of mixture in terms of versatility, you can go with Nirnhone, because that will apply to damage shields. It'll apply to healing and damage, so it's very, very versatile and efficient. However, again, Spinners, Vicious Death, all that stuff does not come in Nirnhone, so that would only be if you have a crafted set such as Nanos. So yeah, can't really use Nirnhone. Otherwise, Precise, probably not going to be all that great, because again, Impen exists, however, it does have a nice mixture of damage and healing. And then you can go with Infused as well if you're really looking to be a massive cheese lord with Oblivion damage. Every 2 seconds it'll be going off with another 50% bonus damage. So yeah, Infused can be very, very devastating, even in PvP. So if you're looking for really high burst, you can go with that as well, especially since Oblivion damage will be bypassing resistances. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. I really would prefer sticking with Infused or Sharpened as my main traits, and then Nirnhoned if you have the ability to do so. But again, with these gear sets, that's not going to happen. As for our back bar, you can use Defending still. You can use Powered if you would want a little bit more healing. You can use Precise if you want that as well. Otherwise, pretty much back bar is really negligible. Defending isn't that amazing because I'm pretty much only on this bar to fear, use my ultimate, or shield. And since you can't be crit when you're shielding, and shields they take true damage, defending is useless. So pretty much Precise or Powered is ideal, but if you find yourself not being able to cast damage shields a lot, then defending will be, even after the nerf. Okay, and then the enchant on here pretty much doesn't matter. I just use Absorb Magic. It's what came on the staff. This is the time that I would use poison, so if someone's already using poisons like resource cost reduction, I will put on my own on this bar because this enchant is kind of whatever. And then you can use Infuse on your back bar as well if you do that. So that covers that. Let's get into abilities. Okay, on our front bar, we're going to have Shadowy Disguise. This is our main form of damage mitigation, and that sounds weird, but it really, really enables Nightblade play the way that I use it, and many others do. You pretty much become untargetable for the next 2.9 seconds, almost 3 seconds. It is rather buggy sometimes. Things will hit you through it, but it will, if you have damage over time effects put on you, you will eat the damage ticks instead of taking the damage. So Cloak pretty much removes the damage as it happens. However, if someone is running a damage add-on, or even in-game damage text, if they have a dot on you and you enter Cloak, they will be able to tell where you are because it'll say miss wherever you're standing on their screen. So keep in mind that if you do have dots on you, you will be found if people are utilizing tools to their advantage. And that, again, comes with in-game data that comes from the game itself. So if you just have the base rolling combat text from the game, then they'll be able to see where you are. But if they don't, then you can kind of play around that. Otherwise, it's really good for mobility. It allows you to move unseen. It means your next ability will crit. And if we use that with funnel health deals or heals based off of how much damage it does. So if you combine Shadowy Disguise and Funnel Health, that means your next Funnel Health will automatically crit, which means all of the healing over time will automatically crit. So that's a really cool way to use Shadowy Disguise. Otherwise, you can line up heavy attacks with Burst from Stealth. You can heavy attack, release with a Cripple or Funnel Health, and then go into a Fear to do tons of damage and prep in order to push someone to low health or just execute them. So you have a lot of burst options from this skill alone, and it also gives us defenses in form of removing projectiles as they're flying through the air. If we cloak, they'll miss, and then damage over time it'll be able to eat up too. So Shadow Disguise is an amazing skill when it works. However, there are many times when this skill does not work. And as well as if you get caught with Mage Light or Revealing Flare, you're pretty much boned. Next is our spammable, a ranged ability that does damage and heals us, as well as one other ally. If you find yourself soloing a lot, use Swallow Soul Morph instead, but Funnel Health has really nice group synergy, especially for Battlegrounds. So it does really nice damage for a spammable that's also ranged. However, you can be reflected, so Dragonites are going to be the bane of your existence with this skill. So if you find yourself fighting a lot of Dragonites in a BG, use Concealed Weapon instead. Especially if you pair that in tandem with Shadowy Disguise, you'll move really fast, you'll stun and set anyone off balance that you attack from invisibility. Otherwise, if you're looking to retain that ranged stuff, then you can use Force Shock, either more 4x. Crushing Shock is really good in PvP because it interrupts. Otherwise, Force Pulse has more raw damage and has splash potential. So yeah, those are both really good options if you're fighting a lot of ranged projectile eaters, so like a Warden using the Reflect, or a Dragonite using Reflect, or someone using the defensive posture skill or ultimate from Sword and Board. So yeah, you have options in terms of spammables, but I really prefer Funnel Health for damage and healing. It's the only way we're really going to be able to stay alive while we're in the thick of combat. Again, utilize with Shadowy Disguise if you need that extra healing, because it will be based off of how much damage you do. So if you're attacking someone who's blocking a lot, the heal's going to be really weak. If you're attacking someone with a damage shield, it'll heal a lot because it does true damage. And then if you're attacking someone who is just like popping really defensive abilities like Veil of Blades or Nova or something like that, try not to utilize this until you get out if you need it for healing. The other thing is that every time you recast this ability, it will refresh the heal over time. So if you get a really big hit and you need that healing, try and use heavy attacks or other abilities instead of just spamming Funnel Health. Because if it does less damage, you're going to get less healing, even if your previous heal over time was much larger. So that is something that kind of sucks about Funnel Health that you have to play around. Next is a really, really powerful skill, Crippling Grasp. This skill is really, really loaded with stuff that it does. It's going to give us major expedition whenever we land this skill on someone. So even if they purge it, whatever, we're still going to have major expedition for the next 8 seconds. So 30% move speed, very, very powerful. It's also going to snare them for 40%. So that really helps kind of control them. And then the initial hit will deal damage, and it also immobilize. So if you're trying to keep someone locked in place to prevent them from running away, utilize Crippling Grasp very, very well. It's really strong against Nightblades, especially cloak spammers, because again, it puts a dot on them, so even if they enter cloak and you're running the in-game damage text, you'll be able to see where they are by following the miss numbers that go up in the air. It'll just say miss, dodge, stuff like that, and you'll be like, oh hey, it's following wherever those damage ticks are, wherever they are at the time that they would normally go off. So that's a really good tool to utilize, like where is this fucker, and then you can run up, hit him with an AoE, a Mage Light, Revealing Flare, Detect Pot, whatever it is. It's also going to do some pretty sizable damage in form of burst. The burst hit is kind of meh, but the damage over time is quite strong, especially if someone isn't urgent. The one disadvantage of crippling is it can only be active on one person, so try and keep this on the target that you want to do a lot of damage to, because this is going to be our primary form of proccing Valken Scoria. So keep this on the target you want to burst, not necessarily just putting it on anyone. Next skill is the most difficult but essential skill to Magicka Nightblades in PvE and PvP, which is Merciless Resolve. This is the centerpiece of what this class is. It's a 20-second buff that increases our damage by 8% in form of Minor Berserk, which is really, really helpful, enabling more burst damage. It will apply to anything, even monster sets. So even though that doesn't scale with us, we're going to have tons of damage. If you're using Vicious Death, that's another 8%. So Minor Berserk is very, very efficient. The other thing is that this will augment our light and heavy attacks that after 5 attempted, not successful, light or heavy attacks, this means they can be dodged and they'll still count, you will gain access to a new skill in place of Merciless Resolve, which is called Spectral Bow. This ability does immense burst damage. If we look at the tooltip, 15k, literally more than double my funnel health in terms of burst damage, as well as reducing their movement speed in form of snare for 3 seconds by 40%. So it's a really, really powerful tool. This is our main form of burst damage and will allow us to almost 100 to 0 some targets who are not paying attention, especially if we've already feared them to drop their block. So Merciless Resolve is disgusting. Furthermore, after shooting the bow, if you manage to shoot off 5 additional light or heavy attacks, you'll be able to fire it again as many times as you can within the duration. So the maximum is 4 shots per cast. However, that's not going to happen. It's usually going to be 2 or maybe 3 if you're really, really able to keep up momentum and just stay on the offensive. Don't always cast this as soon as you get it either. You want to line up burst. So remember, if we're playing properly, we're going to try and hold on to Merciless Resolve for just a little bit and line up with our burst. So going in, casting Fear, drop their block. Maybe we hear Valken Scoria proccing and we have a Soul Harvest or a Soul Tether ready. Then we're going to want to do all of those at once and then fire the bow and get immense burst damage. There are many times when I just cast this skill off of as soon as it procs because I'm a DPS PvE player, which that's where you want to do that. So it's a bad habit of mine. We'll see it plenty of times in the gameplay footage that I'll have after this. But try and hold on to it for moments of burst or to keep up pressure, especially on damage shield spammers, because you're not going to really be able to burst them perfectly. You just have to keep them on the defensive until they run out of resources sometimes. So those are really, really, really powerful but difficult to utilize or perfect skill because it requires you to weave in between all of your attacks. And you'll notice many times where I'm just spamming light attacks because I'm trying to build up stacks so that I can burst all of the quicker. So sometimes I'll look like I'd have no clue what I'm doing by spamming light attacks, and it kind of gives the enemy a false sense of security. We're like, oh, he's spamming light attacks, I can let go of block because I need to retain my stamina, or haha, I'll go in the offensive now and fuck him up, and then boom, I do an immense form of burst damage by lining up Valken, Merciless, Soul Harvest, or whatever, and just annihilate targets. So it's a really, really good skill. Next is a flex spot, and we're going to have to slot a destructive skill unless we're using Foreshock over Funnel Health. However, I really don't suggest that unless you're fighting a lot of fucking Dragon Knights who are just spamming Reflect over and over again, because this can't be reflected. So, yeah, we're going to need a Destruction Staff skill on our bar. You can put Elemental Rage here. However, since this is my kill bar, I really like Soul Harvest. We'll get into that in just a sec. But we need to make sure that we're getting the 8% single target damage bonus of the Ancient Knowledge, so we have to slot a skill. My three favorite things to utilize are Destructive Clench if we want CC and we're not able to really utilize Fear as well as we could, so it helps by knocking enemies back. However, it will not CC at all if the enemy is blocking, and since I really love Fear, I don't utilize this skill terribly much. It costs a lot, it does mad damage, but the CC is quite nice. Elemental Drain is another nice option if you're not fighting Templars, because this skill can be purged, but it's also going to force them to waste their resources unless they're a Warden or something. So LE Drain is really helpful because it applies Major Breach, which means 50 to 80 resistance goes out the window, which is 8% or more damage in form of how much mitigation it removes. So it's a really, really powerful skill for enabling Burst, which will again apply to damage sets like Balkan, as well as any damage that we use from our skills. So yeah, Major Breach really strong, and it's also going to have minor Magicka steals, which gives us 300 Magicka every 1 second as long as we're dealing damage to that target, which is effectively 600 Magicka regen, which is really powerful. So Ellie Drain is an amazing skill. However, it does have counterplay. It can instantly be removed by Blue Betty or Templar spamming Purge. So then the last skill comes into a really nice, another form of utility, which is Pulsar, which afflicts minor mangle to the target when you deal damage to them, which reduces their max health by 10% for 32 seconds. Again, this can be purged, but this lasts such a long time that it's really helpful, especially when fighting tankier builds or larger groups. You move in, you take everyone's health down, and then you synergize really high burst ultimates like Eye of the Storm, Soul Tether, Gravity Crush, whatever it is, and just really melt through people. The other thing is that it is an AoE ability, so that means it can't be dodged. So if you're fighting a Nightblade who's spamming Cloak, put on Cripple so that you can follow their movements by reading where they're missing, and then go up to that point and spam your AoE, and you'll be able to remove them from stealth. So it's really helpful with dodge roll spammers as well as cloak spammers, because it'll remove from stealth and it cannot be dodged. So it's a really nice skill for that. Otherwise, you can also use Inner Light if you want more damage, Magicka, which means more damage shields, or preferably you'd have Radiant Mage Light, which means you will never be successfully ganked again in your life, and you'll be able to remove those pesky Nightblades from stealth very frequently. You can use a ton of other skills like Mirage, Lotus Fan for a gap closer, Piercing Target if you want a 1v1 Nightblades. You have a lot of options for this flex spot, but I really want to make sure that we utilize our 8% passive from the Destruction skill line, so I put Pulsar there. Again, you can use Dual Wield, which will give you another free slot, and you wouldn't have to run that there. As for our ultimate, Soul Harvest hands down wins. Now, you can go with Incap if you want more single target burst as well as kill potential. However, this build is not that heavily about that. Again, I want a little bit of group utility because I love playing BGs. So Soul Harvest enables my ultimate generation to go through the roof while retaining many of the powerful things of Soul Harvest. It does great burst damage, it increases my damage to the target by 20% for 6 seconds, and it afflicts Major Defile, which reduces their healing done, as well as health recovery by 30% for the next 6 seconds. So it's really helpful for killing healers or people who are keeping themselves alive with Troll King and stuff like that, as well as giving me shit tons of ultimate generation, especially when paired with our Catalyst passive, Siphoner passive, and the Alliance skill or passive Combat Frenzy. We will literally have more ultimate than anyone in the world with these things. So I really love Soul Harvest for more ultimate gameplay like Soul Tethers, Eye of the Storm, all that really great stuff. Now, moving on to our back bar, we have our Execute, Impale, really easy to use skill. Since it's on our back bar, that means we're not going to get the 8% damage bonus of our Flame Staff or the Spinner's damage. However, if I cast this skill and swap to my front bar, I will do damage based on my stats of my front bar. So if I cast it back here, 5,063 damage is what it crits for. But if I swap, it does 5,371. So I'm getting all of that extra damage from my front bar because I'm bar swapping, because it does have a slight delay. The other thing is that this skill can be reflected because it is a projectile. So again, if you're fighting a Dragonite or something, don't use this over and over until his flappers are down. But Impale, really good for finishing off targets, does high burst damage, will do even more in Horns of the Reach once they fix the percent modifiers of Execute, so really great. Impale, amazing skill, can be casted from 28 meters away, costs less than our spammable, just a tiny bit, but really helpful. Healing Ward, one of the best skills for damage reduction in terms of a shield, healing, as well as group utilities. So if you find yourself okay with healing, you have a healer and stuff, and you don't need ward, you don't even need a Resto Staff, and you can go double Destro, and then you can use Harness Magicka for an even damage shield. However, I play in small groups, I really like it, plus the added healing is amazing. So Healing Ward. It gives us a damage shield. It increases in size based on how low of health we are. And then after the shield expires, we get a big burst heal based on how large the shield was. So if we cast Healing Ward and we let the whole duration run and we're at low health, we're going to get a really sizable heal. This heal can crit. It's amazing. Healing Ward is wonderful. It can be eaten by other low health targets because it will prioritize the person at the lowest health. So if you are near Puglets in like Cyrodiil or in a BG and your allies are just eating damage and you're trying to keep yourself alive, you're going to have to place yourself further than 28 meters away, which will be even further with Battle Spirit because Battle Spirit also adds another 8 meters onto that. So it can be really obnoxious sometimes, but it's an amazing skill, especially for group utility when your healer is getting pressured or another ally is getting pressured and they just need a little bit more healing or a damage shield because they can't cast it because they're CC'd. Healing Ward will save their life. It's an amazing skill, and it'll also save yours. Something to realize, though, is that even if we are in Cloak, this will remove us from Cloak, so we have to be careful. I usually cast Healing Ward and then enter Cloak right away so that I can make utilization out of this heal because I need the bubble to go off. Boom, it ends after about 2 cloaks and I get that really nice heal. So that's a great way to kind of retract from combat, is to remember we're going to Healing Ward, go into stealth, wait a few seconds, get that 100% crit chance, and then re-enter stealth, and then we're getting all of that crit hit damage from funnel health in form of heal over time and making sure Healing Ward explodes. So it's a really great way to get all of your health back in a matter of 6 seconds or so. Next ability is Mass Hysteria, an AoE fear, one of the best forms of crowd control in the game because, again, it's AoE, it'll hit up to 3 enemies, it lasts 4.5 seconds, which is really long if it doesn't get CC broken, and it drops block. This is the killer of why Nightblades are so great at just devastating opponents and enabling their allies to just tear through people. So if you put a Magicka Sork and a Magicka Nightblade together, they are going to just crush people's souls because Mass Hysteria makes you into a little headless chicken. You run around, you can't do anything, it drops your block, and it applies Minor Maim and a massive snare on you after it ends. So it's a really, really efficient skill, especially when you're fighting healers like a fucking Breath of Life spammer who's just holding block, spamming away. Walk up, Mass Hysteria, line up your burst, boom, GG, game over. Bye. So Mass Hysteria is a really, really powerful skill. It does cost a lot of Magicka, and it can be really buggy. Sometimes I'll be casting this skill and nothing will happen. It'll consume my Magicka. The enemy is not CC immune, but my character will like go to do the fear and then cancel it. So I'm not sure why this happens. It's really obnoxious, but other than that, Mass Hysteria, an amazing skill. Always try and line up your burst or with yourself or your allies. So try and cast Mass Hysteria after you have a Merciless Resolve proc. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have my buffs rolling, I'll be in combat, I'll be building up my my Merciless Resolve, so either just spamming light attacks, maybe doing heavy attacks if I need Magicka, or weaving funnel, and then, okay, I'm ready, I have what I need, I'll go in, fear, and then boom, just doing tons and tons of damage. So again, an even more efficient way to do that is to make sure I'm buffed up, go in, just kind of pestering the enemy, building up my stacks, I'll apply cripple, I'll fear, and then boom, I can do tons of damage, and then if Falcon procs, that's another source of burst damage. So keeping cripple up 100% of the time is another great way to keep up damage. So yeah, great way to use Mass Hysteria. This is another really big skill that makes the Nightblade really powerful. Next skill, I have the wrong morph because I'm a PvEer, and I'm just going to keep it because I've found to adjust. But ideally, you'd be using Leeching Strikes here. That means whenever you do light or heavy attack damage, you will restore 109 or 106 stamina, and then you'll also heal for 1500. This heal can crit. It's kind of meh in BGs and no CP, in just PvP in general, because it will be affected by Battle Spirit, but again, it can crit, so it does help, and then gives us a little bit of resource management. After the 20-second duration, or if we recast this skill, we will get a massive influx of stamina if Leeching Strikes or Magicka if Siphoning attacks. The amount that it will return is based on the duration. So if you cast it at 10 seconds, you'll get half of the listed tooltip value. So it's a percent based of how long the duration is. The full duration is 20 seconds to get all of the listed tooltip value. So that's a really, really great way to utilize resource management. If I am in Cloak and I'm just trying to move around the battlefield or wait for an opponent to get low health, like I'm in a death match and we're kind of being outnumbered, I'll just skirt around the battlefield in stealth, and I'll be also casting siphoning attacks so that I can recast and pretty much stay in indefinitely, because it'll give me my Magicka back without breaking my resources or breaking my cloak. So I can just recast siphoning attacks and I'm getting tons of Magicka back over and over again. So it's a really great way to keep your sustain up. Otherwise, leeching strikes means you'll have way more stamina. In terms of offensive and just combat in general, leeching strikes is the clear winner because stamina is so important in PvP. So leeching strikes hands down wins, but siphoning attacks can be used, especially if you need help with Magicka sustain. Next skill is a skill that I don't utilize properly enough, but it's amazing. Shadowy Image. This skill enables you to outplay so much by covering immense amounts of distance in combat. So we place the skill, it summons an untargetable pet. He's going to do some pretty shitty damage, but he lasts about 20 seconds or so, and every time he hits the target, he applies Minor Maim for 4 seconds, meaning they're going to do less damage. Really good to apply to high burst targets. The other thing is that we can also activate this. We can also activate the shade again to instantly teleport to where he was. Now this will have a maximum range of 28 meters, even with Battle Spirit, because the teleport does not get the extra 8 meters of Battle Spirit or even the extra 15 meters of Reach, or 5. So keep that in mind that your teleport is only 28 meters, but you can utilize this skill so efficiently by covering so much distance in a short amount of time that opponents won't know where you went, especially if you pair it with Cloak, and just allowing you to get tons of resources back because I can heavy attack from over here, place my shade, alright, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be offensive, cast Fear, do all of these stuff. Oh no, I'm getting focused, boom, I can instantly teleport back, Cloak away, move on. Or just wait until the battle is in my favor again. So it's a really great skill. It jukes opponents. It applies Minor Maim. It's really obnoxious. People will often be like, all right, go fight by a shade. We all see it. And it's like, okay, you're just going to camp there? I'll just go Cloak the other way. And then everyone sits by the shade because they think I'm going to reactivate it. So it's a really, really good skill for outplaying your opponents, kind of playing mind games with them. Next is our ultimate. This is another flex spot in terms of what we can use. I really prefer Soul Tether. Does really nice AoE burst damage. It has a heal, it stuns, and it also has a synergy for our allies, which will allow them to deal pretty sizable burst as well as heal themselves. The biggest flaw with Soul Tether is that it can be blocked for CC, but it cannot be dodge rolled. So if you're fighting a dodge roll spammer or a group of them, Soul Tether is a great way to lock them in place if they're not immune to CC. Otherwise, if someone's perma-blocking, you can utilize Mass Hysteria and then Soul Tether right away for really nice burst damage, but mainly it's used as an initiator or a crowd control effect, or if you really need healing. So it has nice AoE potential, but compared to Eye of the Storm or something, it's not that great. However, since I'm using a Resto Staff bar, I cannot utilize Destro Ultimate. So I really like this as a kind of best of both worlds. Shooting Star is also a nice option, or Ice Comet. I prefer Shooting Star for more ultimate generation, especially when paired with Soul Harvest. We'll just have so much ulti. It does really nice burst damage, but it can be blocked, and if it's not blocked, it'll stun them for 2 seconds. So Shooting Star has a lot of counterplay. It's really easy to see. It cannot be reflected, though, so it is like, you know, you're going to be hit by it because you can't dodge it. It's AoE, all that stuff, but when it's blocked, it does almost no damage. So Shooting Star is kind of but when you utilize it in tandem with CC, so again, if I drop Shooting Star and then fear someone, the second that it's going off, they can't be blocking it. The other thing is it has a sizable AoE that does decent damage. If they sit in it for more than 3 seconds, they're taking more damage than the initial hit did. So it's pretty powerful. And then if we want to be really, really defensive, we can also use the Restoration Staff Ultimate Panacea. I believe the proper morph is called Lifebringer or Champion of Light or something. Whatever one gives you major protection and force for the duration. It's amazing. You're pretty much unkillable. You're getting shit tons of healing over time. You're taking 30% less damage, and your crits do 15% more damage and healing. You are literally unkillable if someone procs Resto Ultimate. It's really broken. I hope that it gets adjusted, but if you want to stay alive in a 1vx situation or just live until your allies come to your aid, that ultimate is fucking filthy in terms of staying alive while also having really nice offensive pressure in form of major force. So that's a really good ultimate to use as well. So that covers pretty much everything. Now we'll go into a gameplay segment. I have a bunch of clips that I took. Don't expect anything phenomenal out of them. I'm going to be talking about them. I purposefully kept mistake clips, so like when I'm playing like an idiot, so that we can demonstrate how difficult it is to play Magicka Nightblade, and then so we can talk about them, so when you go in to Cyrodiil, you have a better idea. Oh, hey, I'm making those mistakes. I should be doing this instead. So we'll be talking over them, and then just looking through and explaining my actions and just why things are so powerful with the Magicka Nightblade if played properly. So let's get into it. So here we are in a deathmatch. My team is being pushed. I just respawned because I died, but we're going to go in. So I'm going to immediately buff up, start and put stuff on. Valken Scoria gets a finishing blow, and I'm just kind of weaving my skills, looking around, focusing targets that I've already put pressure on. Here I see a permablocker, so it's time to go to Fear. I waste my Relentless. I should have used Relentless after the target was feared, but luckily my group was there to clean up the rest of combat. So now we're going to skirt around for a little bit looking for a target. We're kind of going to stay grouped because in BGs, numbers are to your advantage. So here we notice that there's fighting back there. We're all going to utilize our executes. I'm a Nightblade, we have a Sork, so there's lots of executes going off, and we're kind of just single filing or single targeting these enemies and like getting them into situations where they're not going to be able to live. So here someone pops Soul Harvest or Soul Assault, but we burst them down. Here's another Jesus Beamer getting wrecked. A lot of the time to kill in BGs is really, really quick if people are focusing. So like this guy, he gets caught out of stealth. He's like, oh, what do I do? And he instantly dies because he just gets crowd controlled and can't do anything. Here Nightblade comes in, does the same thing. Now we're going to fast forward a little bit, and I'm finding their healer off on the side. I place Cripple to kind of get their slowed in place. We stun her. Easy peasy. Now we're going to move forward. I know that there's a few more. Here I see some fighting. I see the Nightblade just popped Resto Ultimate. That means he's on the defensive. So I'm going to go over to him. He's going to try and crowd control me. He's moving a lot, covering a lot of distance. It's going to be hard to kill him because he's dodge rolling a lot, but there I fear him right as Crystal Frags is going off and an execute, so he couldn't put on his shield and block and finish. There again, I'm utilizing fear whenever I see someone's on the defensive coming to me. Here I cast fear in a state of panic because I thought I was going to continue being pressured, but they back off, they go on the defensive, I run in, soul tether everyone, and now they all have to CC break. Their Nightblade soul tethers, that means he's on the defensive, so I'm going to focus him, and he's going to make an easy target once I have all of my stuff on him. I'm going to move in, fear the Dragonite as well, so that they get feared away, and easy peasy. Here's just one more target. He runs in after witnessing his allies, gets obliterated because CC, and then here I see the Sork again, so I utilize Burst there. Cripple, Soul Harvest, Fear, dead. Here I see a Templar about to do a cast. I bash it and make quick work out of her. She's not able to do anything because the burst is too high, even though she CC broke that Fear. Here I see another Permablocker, run in, Soul Harvest, get the killing blow. We have two more purple team people. Make quick work out of them by single targeting, and then just, I see two people fighting here, so I start executing the low health, get the killing blow for our team, and then fear the rest of them away. And then we pretty much finish everyone off here, and then like the next 5 minutes we try and find someone. Here we are in a capture the flag. This Breath of Life spammer, I make a lot of mistakes dealing with. I should have saved my burst after I feared her, so I was just like, boom, I'm going to fire off my Spectral. I waste my burst, she Breath of Life. So now I'm waiting for her Destro ulti to go down. I apply Cripple to lock her in place. She's spamming Breath. I have to go in, fear her, put on Soul Harvest, and then execute. Oh, I don't even Soul Harvest because I'm being focused by the Warden. I get pushed right here. She's spamming birds. I can't dodge, so I have to enter Cloak to get those projectiles off. Then I go in, put on Soul Harvest because I see she's spamming, and then get our Relic back. Then I'm going to be pushed on by a Nightblade. I put on Fear. He starts to go away, just spamming the ever-living shit out of dodge roll. He enters Stealth. I try and fear him, trying to predict where he's moving, but he's going to get away. Now there's another person behind me. I have to swap targets. He's just spamming Wrecking Blow, so I immediately cripple so that I can create some distance. Back up, fear him, boom, dead. Here a Sork comes onto me, and Healing Ward saves my life. I just have enough Magicka for 2 Healing Wards, but it's just enough for my allies to crowd control. I rip off a heavy attack, put on a Cripples to get my major expedition, and then go cap for the win. Here we are in a domination match. These are going to be some pretty rough ones in between, so I cut a lot of the moving in between because Nightblades don't do too hot in there, but here I'm fighting a Stamina Nightblade who's using proc sets. There's going to be a lot of fights with this guy, and they're going to be really close because he's using that classic cheese, heavy attack, in-cap, Viper, Selines, and it's going to be really difficult, but we're going to beat him in a lot of situations because we utilize our strengths. Here the red team is pushing in to try and take our flag. There's only 2 of them, so I'm going to try and go in because I have an ally with me. Here another one crit rushes in, so I'm going to move into the group. I see that they're perma-blocking. I fear and then start spamming Healing Ward as I try and move away from the fight. So there's a perfect demonstration of how to get out of a sticky situation. Utilize fear, utilize damage shields, and then create distance. Here I'm being pressured again by this Stamina Nightblade. I fear him away for just a moment of reprieve. I put on Healing Ward, enter Stealth, and then utilize a line of sight until my allies come into focus. He reveals himself for just a second. I put on Cripple and then make quick work out of him with the Soul Harvest. Easy peasy, because I utilized my strengths. After I feared him, I knew I had just a few seconds to line of sight while applying Healing Ward and then using Stealth as an advantage so that he couldn't see me and keep the pressure up on me. Here we're just seeing a few people fighting. I notice red team is very, very coordinated, so I go on the person farthest in the back. I try and shoot a Spectral Bow, but they dodge almost everything. So we're kind of just sitting in the back. I'm going to try and build up Magicka off this Dwemer Sphere. Red team is kind of just steamrolling everyone because they're really utilizing their entire group here, and we're not. So here, again, just going to light attack spam with siphoning attacks active to get some Magicka back. Gonna take this flag, and I think that we're gonna go center next after this. Kind of just running around, an ally dies, that means green team is nearby. I realize that, so I try and use Cloak to split them apart. They're like, oh, whatever, you go that way, I'll go this way. And then I find their dodge roll spammer, their other Nightblade, put Cripple on him so that I can keep up distance, and then he kind of is like, all right, I'm not fighting this. Then red team comes in. We immediately burst someone down to half health, but he rolls in. I fear to get some pressure off me, start spamming Healing Ward. I notice they're stacked. I use Soul Tether to get some extra healing and some stuns, and then block this Meteor, and I realize this is a losing fight. We're not going to win this, so I'm trying to build up ultimate and you get resources back. Here I notice someone kind of pugging out, so I turn around, focus them, and then red team starts is like, all right, let's get out of here. So we're trying to put up pressure. I use Soul Harvest to try and mitigate this tank's healing. He's just going to streak away with Sword and Board, Reflect ultimate, so I'm not going to be able to catch him. My food runs out. I'm being pressured, so I immediately enter Cloak. Shit. Eat the food, quick. And then I return to the fight, reapplying my buffs, use Healing Ward, and I'm like, all right, let's just get out of here. Now we're into another Capture the Flag match. I see some skirmishing on the side. I'm kind of just pugging out because I want some killing blows, and I steal the kill from this Nightblade and then fear the other one. Then I realize, all right, there's even more people. I'm going to back up, Purple team puts on Reflect, so they're just reflecting everything back to me. Once it's down, all right, I'm saving up my Spectral, boom, dead. I still have my Spectral because they died before, so I'm going to utilize it after I see him stop dodge rolling, but unluckily, he continues dodge rolling. I realize that some team has taken the red team's flag, which is why I was coming over here in the first place, so I'm kind of just cloaking around, kind of giving them this false sense of security. It's like, oh, hey, we're just going to push your team in because they didn't realize I was there. So I run in, put on Soul Harvest because I see that he's healing a lot. Fear, boom, Relentless as he's feared. So really, really utilizing Fear and Spectral Bow in tandem. Here we have the same dodge roll spammer. Going to have Sork execute on him as I fear him, and he's going to be quick work. Here I see a really heavy stack, so I'm kind of just going in. I use Soul Tether to lock everyone in place because I noticed one of my allies dropped the Shooting Star, and they're all just sitting in the lingering damage, and they pretty much melt. Here one person was trying to put pressure on one of my teammates. I kind of force him to fall off. He jumps away, and now I'm just creating distance from myself and my allies so that because we're under a spawn. Here I see one of our Sorks getting pressured, so I immediately turn, put on Cripple, slow him down, line up some bursts with my teammate Sork, and quick work. There, Velkin Scoria just fucking annihilates that guy. Utilizing Cripple on your single target kills that you're trying to focus is a great way to get some extra bursts out of Velkin. Especially if you listen to that audio cue and shoot off a Spectral Bow at the same time, someone's going to be in a world of pain. Here I realize someone has taken our flag. I go over there, but notice that my Sork is being pressured, so I immediately turn around. They drop an ultimate on him, put on fucking Endless Fury. I can never remember the name of that skill. But this guy's a tank and a healer, so he's going to go in, be defensive, but we immediately fear him and then just do tons and tons of damage at the same time, lining up our burst, and he just falls flat on the ground. Here, orange team has the flag, so I'm going to move over there because I see fighting between green, which is ours. I'm trying to get it back so that we can cap it. I put Cripple on. Velkin Scoria procs at a moment of inopportune, so unfortunately I'm not going to have that burst, but I realize this person is a Stamsork spamming Dark Deal, so I bash the shit out of them so that they get interrupted, get stunned, and become useless. Now, my team has the flag. It's the same clip, but I just cut a little bit of movement in between out of it. I move out to try and go assist him because they're trying to cap, but we can't yet because the enemy team has our flag. I'm moving in, notice a Warden kind of just being a little puglet, so I go in, fear, execute. Here, purple team, I noticed just kind of going ham on one of our damage dealers instead of trying to cap, so we're going to put up some burst. He gets stuck on something, and then I am just spamming execute, hoping that he stops dodge rolling and that it lands. Here I fear someone away after I pick them up, and now I'm going to speed up the thing because I go turn it in, but I realize that, oh, hey, we don't have it. So I'm just going to come over here, sit by my base, hide behind wall for a little bit. Then I realize, oh, shit, my team is not doing anything without me, so I'm going to go back out in just a few seconds. So on my way, though, I am ganked by purple team. They want their relic back. Boom, immediately taken to half health. I'm like, not today. Put on my dots, my Sork is there with me, we instantly nuke the Nightblade, and then we're going to go get our relic back. Our relic already returns, and I'm not even realizing it. I'm like, oh shit, our relic is back. I'll go turn that in now. Kind of just using Healing Ward as a little bit of a buffer zone, because I know there's a few Nightblades here. Here, red team tries to get there in time to stop us, but the Sork and I make quick work out of him by lining up our burst. Sork Execute is just so powerful, especially when utilized with a Nightblade. If you make them drop block with Fear, a Sork is just going to crush anyone with you. They're a really good duo partner. Exactly like that. He just puts on burst, we line up ours, boom, dead. Here I turn around and place Cripple on the target so that I can get my major expedition while closing the distance to the relic. So that's why I'm kind of turning around looking, is because I want to get my major expedition by utilizing Cripple. I just put it on a target and then start running. But that pretty much finished things off with the build. I know it was a shorter demonstration. I'll definitely be streaming some Magicka Nightblade BGs in the future so we can showcase a lot better about pressure, as well as showcasing how it looks in a much more organized group, just annihilating targets by utilizing fear in tandem with stuff, but hopefully this is giving you an idea of what to do and what not to do in some of these BGs and just no CP campaigns in general, utilizing resto heavy attacks, utilizing cloak defensively and offensively, and so on. But I really hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys around. The quality of these videos are only the way they are because of the amazing community we've grown. Folks who go the extra mile to support and enable me are the real creators, not me. If you'd like to help improve the quality and future of this channel, consider subscribing, pledging at my Patreon, or even just commenting feedback. I cannot thank you all enough for being a part of this amazing dream come true.